Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call our meeting to order, and thank you very much for coming. For the record, this is the Nashville Town Meeting agenda session. For the record, today is Wednesday, November 30, 2016, and the time is 7 o'clock. We'll move along as rapidly as possible. We have one item tonight, which is a special use hearing, which will require a quasi-judicial presentation if anyone wants to speak, and we will move from that point. All those persons required who wish to speak will have to be sworn, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So we've got one public hearing, which is a joint affair with their planning board, which is over here, and thank you very much for joining us. Does the chair hear a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We go into public hearing. Is there any discussion? Okay. There being none, all in favor indicate so by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. We are in public hearing. The first item is a special use request of 2016-08, a quasi-judicial public hearing for the consideration of a special use request to allow a wireless communication tower on property located off Eastern Avenue. This property is in an A1 agricultural and I1 industrial zoning district and identified as parcel ID number 3810.07-78-1842. And as this is a quasi-judicial thing, all those who would wish to speak will have to sign up and register with the clerk. Have you anyone do that yet?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll have to come forward and be sworn. Those persons who wish to speak, would you come forward and we can do this collectively? Okay. Okay, we can do this all. Just lay your right hands upon that and raise your left hand and repeat after me. So you have signed up over here. Okay. Do you swear the evidence that you will give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, good. Consider yourself sworn. Okay, thank you. Now, in order for a quasi-judicial hearing to proceed, we have rules, and the rules I have to read so that everybody knows we're traveling from the same regulations. This is quite lengthy, so just bear with me. The application for a special use permit requires an evidentiary hearing on the application, which will be heard by the council acting as a quasi-judicial board. The purpose of the hearing is to gather legally acceptable evidence in order to establish sufficient facts to apply the applicable ordinance. The purpose is not to gather public opinion about the desirability of the project. Council should not discuss or receive information about the merits of the case from the parties or members of the public before the hearing. All testimony before the council must be sworn testimony. All persons wishing to speak on this matter must be sworn in. Applicants may elect to be represented by legal counsel. The applicant has the burden of producing sufficient, substantial, competent, and material evidence for the council to conclude that the criteria of the applicable ordinances have been met. Now, the procedure for the hearing. There's a 2-hour time limit for the hearing. At the conclusion of the 2-hour time limit, the council may make one of the following actions. 1, extend the time limit and continue the public hearing. Or 2, table the item until the end of the meeting, at which time the hearing will continue. Or 3, refer the item to the next council agenda meeting, at which time the hearing will continue. The procedure for the hearing of this case is as follows. Anyone who wants to speak at this quasi-judicial public hearing should sign in with the town clerk and be sworn in to speak. Has everyone done this? Who wants to speak? Okay. The hearing is open and the preliminary matters are discussed. A staff representative presents a preliminary statement. The applicant is called on to present the argument and the evidence in support of the application, followed by others who wish to speak in support of the application. Council and members of the planning board may pose questions to the applicant and the speakers who spoke in support of the application. Persons opposed to the application are then invited to speak. The council and members of the planning board may pose questions to the persons who spoke in opposition to the request. Both sides are permitted to question the other side and present rebuttals. Then the mayor closes the period for public discussion. The council and the planning board deliberate. In the course of the deliberation, the members of the council and the planning board may ask questions of the staff, the applicant, or others who have testified. But beyond that, additional comments from the floor will be admitted only at the discretion of the mayor. Additional cross-examination and rebuttals may be made only on new evidence presented. Then the hearing is closed. The planning board will make a written recommendation to the town council before the next regular council meeting, and the town council will render a decision at the next regular council meeting. After we conduct this, the planning board will meet, and then they will send us a recommendation for our legislative meeting, which will be next Tuesday night. Now, the rules for public hearing, the rules for public hearing speakers. All speakers should speak from the podium. The applicant should present their arguments and evidence to show that the standards of the applicable ordinance have been met as concisely and efficiently as possible. Other speakers should endeavor to limit their testimony to 5 minutes. The mayor may extend this time limit if the speaker needs more time to present additional new evidence. All speakers should address the approval criteria and must avoid inflammatory, irrelevant, or repetitious testimony. Groups are encouraged to select a spokesperson to speak about general matters for the group. Speakers may introduce exhibits only to support their testimony at the hearing. Letters from individuals who do not appear at the hearing and petitions are considered unsworn testimonial hearsay and cannot be considered by council. All speakers should ensure their testimony, 1, is relevant to the criteria, 2, consists of statements and facts which the speaker can personally testify, and not statements or words of others who are not testifying, and 3, is not speculative opinions or generalized objections without supporting facts. Only speakers who are qualified as experts in the appropriate field should testify about 1, how the use of the property in a particular way would affect the value of the property, 2, how the increase of vehicular traffic resulting from the proposed development would pose a danger to the public safety, or 3, other matters that would require expert testimony under the rules of evidence. All speakers should direct their testimony to the criteria that must be met for the particular application. For this special use permit, approval of the criteria are: A, the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety as located where proposed and developed according to the plan as submitted and approved. B, use meets all required conditions and specifications. C, use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the use is a public necessity. And D, location and character of the use, if developed according to the plan as submitted and approved, will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with the plan of development for the town. Okay, with all those things said, I will now ask for our town planner, Brian Hassel, to give us a summary of the situation and what the application is about. Brian?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's we've got a complete application. That's why we're here tonight. Yes, sir. It's in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, or our ETJ. It is not in the city limit. It is on the eastern side of town, heading towards the industrial area, right on the outskirts of our city limits, just past Regency on the right. And I also want to tell you it's a monopole design that's 180 feet tall with a 9-foot lightning rod on top. You do have an application that meets and exceeds all the standards that are in our current land use regulations.
Okay. Does it also fit with the zoning? I see part of this is agriculture and part is industrial. Will that require any further change?
No, sir. Both of those are adequate for a special use permit. The parcel is so large that it actually has 2 zoning districts on it. Actually, where the site is specifically is in the A1.
Okay, excellent. Okay, with that being said, I'll now call speakers. Who is the first person on the list? And the first person on the list is Laura Good, who's the lawyer for the persons making the request. Will you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Laura Good. I am with Baker Donaldson, Behrman, Caldwell, and Brookwitz. We represent Verizon Wireless in their application for special use permit. My business address is 1501 Main Street, Suite 600, Columbia, South Carolina. However, I live and work in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'd like to thank the Planning Department for all their help in navigating the ordinance and explaining the hearing process. That's been very helpful, and I'd like to thank you for your time tonight for us to discuss this application and answer any questions y'all may have. Also here tonight is John Yeagley. He is with Chase Real Estate Services, and he prepared or did the site acquisition for the site. In other words, based on the search area that was defined by Verizon Wireless, his company went and found the proposed location for the tower, and he can answer any questions you may have about that. At this time, I'd like to enter the application as filed with Exhibits 1 through 16 into evidence. This application goes through each of the ordinance requirements for new towers as well as special use permits, and the attached exhibits in the narrative explain how the facility will meet each of those application requirements. At this time, I'd like to just touch on a couple of the highlights. As Mr. Hassel just stated, the proposed tower will be a 180-foot tall monopole, which means it is a self-support structure. It will not have any of the guy wires. It will not have any lattice structure, so it's not a three-leg. It's a pole just like a telephone pole or an electric pole, but just taller. The facility will not be lit. It will not produce any noise. There will not be an increase in traffic after the initial construction period. There will just be periodic maintenance, on average about one time a month. I believe there was a question perhaps about the exact location of the tower on the property, and I'd like to direct y'all, I did provide copies of the application for your reference. Exhibit 8 has some site images for the site, and if you flip, it's near the back of those images. I believe it's the third image from the back. There is a Google Earth image that has a little yellow pin, and it shows an aerial of the property, and there's a little pin that says Nash CC, and that is where the facility will be located on that property. So as you can see, it'll be set back several hundred feet from the Eastern Avenue public right-of-way. It will be situated very closely to an existing natural vegetation that is existing on the property that will provide screening for adjacent properties to the east, south, and west. The purpose for this site, or the network objective, is to provide additional coverage along U.S. Highway 64 between Nashville and Rocky Mount, as well as to provide capacity offload for 4 existing Verizon Wireless sites in the area. A map of those existing sites was included as Exhibit 13 to the application. So basically what that means is here we need both an increase in coverage. There's a coverage gap in that area, but also the existing sites that are in the vicinity that are servicing Verizon Wireless customers. The demand by the customers for both voice and data usage on their mobile devices is exceeding the capacity of those existing sites, such that a new site needs to be in place so that you're not going to get dropped calls. You're going to have faster download times and internet browsing speeds on your mobile devices. In terms of the search area, there was a search area map that was provided as Exhibit 6 to this application. And I just wanted to point you to that because there was one of the application requirements is that the applicant prove an inability to co-locate on existing towers. That search ring, and Mr. Yeagley can speak a little bit more in depth to that, but it's a little over a half mile in diameter, so it's a pretty specific search area, and within that search area, there were no existing towers or other structures for co-location. That's the first thing that Verizon always looks to do is co-locate, but there were no structures in the search ring upon which co-location was feasible, so a new tower is required. As I stated earlier, the application with its exhibits go through each of the ordinance standards and demonstrates how those standards are met. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about those. But otherwise, in respect for your time, I was just going to move to the findings of fact for the special use permit that are required of the board to consider. Does anyone have any questions about the telecommunications standards?
I just have one technical question.
Sure.
You said this will not be lighted.
Correct.
I assume you have a red light on top for low-flying planes?
No.
No?
It's under 200 feet in height, and per FAA, per the federal aviation requirements, this tower, since it's under 200 feet in height, will not be required to be lit at all.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
All right, I'll move to the findings of fact. The first finding of fact is that the use will not materially endanger the public's health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plan as submitted and approved. The proposed tower facility will not materially endanger public health or safety and is a public necessity. Namely, it will aid in emergency response to emergency calls, both from customers trying to place emergency calls, but also for emergency responders, 911, EMS, and police. Currently in America, almost 50% of households are wireless-only households now. So it's becoming increasingly important to have effective wireless coverage everywhere for those people that only have access to phone via a wireless device in emergency situations, as well as their day-to-day communication necessities. Also, 911, EMS, police, they have mobile data transmitters in their vehicle that help them in emergency situations. EMS vehicles have these to transmit information to the hospital as they are taking a patient en route that requires wireless service. Mobile data information in police vehicles helps them to pull up criminal records, arrest records, warrants, things of that nature, in order to make on-the-spot informed decisions on the road that they would not be able to get that same type of information via radio. Additionally, the facility will comply with all applicable federal, state, local, and laws and regulations, including FAA and FCC requirements. Additionally, the fall zone, which is the area in which the tower would collapse in the very unlikely event of collapse, that's all contained within the subject property. It's over a 60-acre property, so in the unlikely event of tower failure, it would not cross any property lines or encroach on any structures. The second finding of fact is that the use shall meet all required conditions and specifications. Again, the application as filed with its exhibits 1 through 16 show compliance with all of those applicable ordinance requirements. The third finding of fact is that the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the use is a public necessity. The use is a public necessity as previously discussed. And finally, the fourth finding of fact is that the location and character of the use, if developed according to the plan as submitted, will be in harmony with the area in which it is located and in general conformity with the plan of development of the town. So to speak to the first aspect of that standard, that the use will be in harmony with the area, the first thing to note is that the subject property is split zoned A1 and I1. All of the surrounding adjacent properties are either zoned A1 or I1. So that means that a tower of the same facility could be built on any of those adjacent properties so long as it met the special use permit standards and setback standards. So that's prima facie evidence that this facility and this use would be in harmony with that area since it's permitted in all those adjacent properties. Also, the adjacent nearby properties are commercially and industrially developed. Immediately to the east of the property is a commercial small temporary storage unit facility with U-Haul. There's also some other commercial businesses down that way, as well as there's a John Deere facility that's got outdoor storage of heavy farm equipment. If you go to the west, down Eastern Avenue, there's a Walmart Supercenter, Wendy's, gas stations. So this is a commercially and industrially developed area such that this use will be in harmony with the existing uses nearby. Additionally, the tower will be set back several hundred feet off the right-of-way. There will be existing vegetation on a lot of the property that will screen it from a lot of the adjacent uses. To the extent there is not natural vegetation screening it to the north, the bottom of the facility will be screened by a landscape buffer as required by the ordinance. The future land use designation for this piece of property is non-residential commercial. That encourages compatible and codependent residential and non-residential land uses, and foresees existing retail, wholesale, business, and professional services in that future land use designation. Therefore, the tower goes with those types of developments for that future land use, and will bring necessary non-residential use to the nearby subdivisions, bringing that wireless service that residents will need and expect. Additionally, one of the land development plan goals that this tower will be in conformance with is to encourage commercial and industrial development that enhances job opportunities while also maintaining the desired quality of life. This goal, as set forth in the plan for the town, recognizes a need to assist with the promotion of commercial and industrial development and retain existing businesses and industries. And the network objective of providing this increased wireless coverage and capacity to the area will meet that goal by providing wireless service, which is an increasing, if not demand and necessity for businesses in today's economy. With that, I would respectfully request that the planning board recommend approval of the
Okay.
special use permit, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Does the planning board have any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay. And the next person who's been sworn to speak is John Yeagley. Mr. Yeagley? Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Certainly. My name is John Yeagley with Chase Real Estate Services. We just moved our office. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Apologize for the address. I wrote it down, but it always slips my mind.
Just leave it with the clerk when you
Thank you.
when you
Yes,
remember.
she has it. Thank you.
You got it? Okay.
Thank you for your time. I do work for Verizon. I helped find the location for the site. If you had any questions, I'm really just here to answer questions as you go through the application. I think it's very thorough and meets all your requirements, and we appreciate your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any comment, or anyone from the general public have any comment against this issue? Does anyone from the general public have any comment against this issue? And for the third time, does anyone from the general public have any comment against this issue? Anyone from the council have anything to say? Comments?
I have one concern about the lighting. We have other cell towers in the area, and it seems to me they all have a beacon on top. And as you say, you're right under the 200-foot limit at 180 feet, but you have a 9-foot lightning rod. We have a lot of low-flying aviation in this area, small planes, and I'm just wondering if some kind of beacon might be a good idea.
So to answer your question, typically Verizon does not light a tower unless it is required by FAA requirements, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, the maintenance that goes along with it, but primarily there are some residences that are nearby, and to the extent possible, Verizon tries to limit the lighting so that it will not impact adjacent land uses, in this case adjacent residential property uses, by having a light that would be on. I will say that an airspace study was provided as part of the application. That is Exhibit 10. And this airspace study runs the location of the tower and the tower height through all of the federal aviation requirements to see if either notice to the FAA will be required or lighting will be required. And in this situation, it was not required. So, the preference for Verizon, again, would be to not light the tower so that it would not have any additional impact on adjacent properties and to visibility to adjacent properties.
So this tower is not as tall as some of the others in our area.
Either that, or sometimes it's not just about height, it's about also proximity to other airfields. I can't speak to those towers, their proximity to other airfields, so that would be another reason why they might be required to be lit. But correct, this tower meets those requirements where it does not have to be lit by the FAA.
We had a similar question come up several years ago when the public schools wanted to put up a communications tower, which is the same height, that we asked them to put a light on it for the same reason Mrs. Hinton was talking about. We do have some low-flying guys in the afternoon with this hang, whatever you call those things.
Okay.
And we'd rather spend a little money and err on the side of safety,
Okay.
spend some of your money.
Okay.
Other comments?
I've got a quick question.
Yes.
It's probably irrelevant, but most of the plans are dated for January of 2015, except for the most recent site plan that's October 2016. Is this a kind of a long-term thing that has been in the works and just now came to fruition?
It is. It has been a long-term project. I will start by saying that typically, by the time we get to a zoning hearing, the first stage is once the search ring is issued, you have Chase that would go out and look for a property owner. That takes, some time to get a property owner that is willing and a property that meets the zoning requirements for the need for the tower. Then they negotiate a lease with that property owner. Then there's also, you've got to do environmental due diligence. You've got to do your FCC NEPA review because it's a federally regulated tower, so that takes a while. So by the time we get to a zoning hearing, we're usually at least a minimum of a year into a site. Now, this one's a little bit special because the site got placed on hold by Verizon, and that's just more due to they put their sites in priority based on the network needs, and so that's what happened with this. I mean, all of their towers are needed, but they have to rank them in priority somehow.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone from the planning board have any observations? Okay. There being none, we will forward this to the planning board for their meeting after this one, and we'll act on whatever their recommendations are. There's a chair here motion, we got a public hearing.
So made.
Second.
It's been moved to second, we go out of public hearing. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate so by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Accordingly, we're out of the public hearing and we're down to council comments. Before we start on that, let me make a couple of comments. Councilman Larry Taylor's not with us tonight. He's out of town on business. And will be back for our meeting on Tuesday night. An update on our Lumber Street house. That's been moving along through the hoops, and it's going along very slowly, but it's still moving forward. And they're falling back to that 2012 trust fund where we actually started this thing back some time ago. And then we got one little glitch. I'll make an announcement. I got an official letter the other day, as did the town manager, from our town attorney, Liz Fairman, that she is disassociating from Fields and Cooper as of January 1. And she's turned us over to other attorneys in that group. I'm not sure who we'll end up at that point, but that's something we'll have to discuss as we go forward. Okay, with all that said and done, comments, Mr. Taylor?
None tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hinton?
Once again, I'd like to thank the planning board.
Okay. Ms. Copeland?
No comments, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much. With all that said and done, the chair will entertain do not forget our Christmas social that the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring on December 13th at 5 o'clock at the Nashville
And the
Exchange.
Christmas parade is this Saturday as well.
That's right. Thank you. And the Christmas parade is this Saturday. I think the action sort of starts at 3 and the parade starts at 4 and
Yes, sir.
kind of floats on up to dark when they light the Christmas tree. Okay, please be there. It's a lot of fun.
And the town Christmas party is,
And the town Christmas party is Tuesday?
December
15th, December 15th. At which I will not be able to attend because I'm leaving that morning for Chicago. My wife has decided I need the uplifting benefits of the Chicago Symphony. So I will be getting edified, I guess. Okay, thank you very much. Now, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So made.
It's been moved and
second.
seconded. We adjourn. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate so by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Accordingly, we are adjourned. The planning board may have it.